So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Fairy Tale. So let's start the series. The Fourth Great Shinobi War has come to a conclusion. Corpses were scattered everywhere, the soil itself was ripped apart, and the area was blazing with black fire as fires surged into the sky. Four folks were in the middle of it all. With his black hair styled like a duck's butt, a sword in his hand, and peculiar purple eyes with concentric circles radiating from the pupil, the first young guy seemed somewhat brooding. The next was a young lady with a distinctive diamond on her forehead, clothed in a military uniform, and sporting unusual pink hair. The final one was a young man with spiky hair who was also blonde. His most distinguishing features were 3 whisker markings on each cheek, and his clothing was extremely ragged and distinctly orange and black. They were up against a lone man, dressed in black under once glorious red armor that was now irreparably ruined. He had been sliced out with some sort of sharp object, and his eyes were gone. He had very long black hair. Additionally, he had lost both of his arms, one at the forearm and the other mid-bicep. He spoke while glancing at least in what he believed to be their general direction. So, this is how it ends. Decades of planning, only to end with 3 miserable brats. They glared at him, determined to put a stop to this protracted argument, but they did not reply. They began to regain their strength. The blonde-haired one used the pure slicing force of wind, the pink-haired one charged a fist of pure core energy, and the dark-haired one prepared an arrow made of pure black flames. With core energy, wind, and flames pouring towards the man, the 3 of them united and launched their assaults as one. Knowing that his fate was predetermined, the man merely lowered his head, and the attack had an effect. He was burned by the fire, struck by the intensity of the core, and caught by the wind. Only a massive crater remained after the attack, which was so intense that it completely changed the terrain itself. That meant the death of Ghost Uchiha, the man who had repeatedly evaded death's grip, the traitor who had betrayed his best friend, the liar who had fooled everyone, and the plotter who had initiated this conflict. As time passed, these 3 Naruto, his buddy Haruno Sakura, and Naruto himself performed magnificent and honorable deeds and gained notoriety. They were heralded as the future Jinsetsu no Sanin, the 3 great shinobi. Rejoice in your hope now, it will not last. I will find a way to return. Not even death himself will hold me back. Project Tsuki no Mi will succeed, and this world will know peace. Is what Ghost Uchiha is said to have said as his final words, cursing them. With the discovery of magic, which proved to be considerably more adaptable than core energy, the shinobi communities gradually disappeared. Shinobi eventually lost influence as magicians took over more and more of their responsibilities. In the end, the 5 elemental nations were assimilated and transformed into the nations we are familiar with today, including Fiori, where kings took the place of daimyos. Hey, Gilderts, but what about Ghost Uchiha's curse? What happens next? Gilderts looked at the boy who had interrupted him and laughed. They were on a brief camping excursion in the wilderness. He gazed at the salmon-haired youngster, the one he considered a surrogate son, his eyes burning as brightly as the campfire, his untamed hair, his keen fangs. As he took another gulp of his drink, he smiled and said, "That was the end of the story, Natsu. It's just an old folktale. No one can actually escape death." "Oh? But it can't just end like that." Another of their guests, Lasana Strauss, a white-haired girl with bright blue eyes, said, "It's okay, Natsu, it was still a great campfire story." Lasana was one of the Strauss twins. Right. Natsu blushed and turned aside as she drew the dreaded puppy dog eyes. "Ah, young love," Gilder said, laughing even harder. "No, it's not anything like that, Gilderts," Natsu said, turning and blushing even more. "Don't think about anything." "Natsu, nothing like that. I thought we were going to get married," Lasana said, breaking out in tears. "What? I was just kidding, I guess." "Yes. Just kidding." Natsu stumbled and thrashed in an attempt to soothe her. "Alright. We will always be together." Both Natsu and Gilderts were perspiring due to Lasana's 180-degree mood swing. Gilderts simply gazed up into the sky, thinking, just a story. Time skipping. As a testament to the special and strong mages who also live within its halls, Fairy Tale's Guild building stands tall and proud, its distinctive design reminiscent of some Indian architecture, making it stand out from Magnolia's average regular buildings. At the moment, the country is experiencing a powerful storm that it hasn't seen in many years, with rain falling in sheets and thunder and lightning crashing and flashing in the sky, making it seem as though the heavens themselves are at war with themselves. However, another war appears to be beginning within the hall itself, one that will forever alter the course of the land of Fiori. "What do you mean that Lasana has passed away now?" "Fine young man," Natsu Dragneel stammered, wearing a sleeveless open vest that exposed his arms and chest, white baggy pants tied down mid-calf, and his ubiquitous scarf around his neck. He was facing Lasana's older siblings, Beast Arm Elfman and Marahan, the she-devil, but he couldn't believe how they looked. Both were completely bandaged, Elfman's right eye in particular, and Marahan's left arm. Lasana, the only person who had ever mattered in his life, was absent though, and everyone in the guild hall was upset, though not as much as these two with Natsu, though they were reacting very differently. The mission went wrong, she was killed. Elfman sobbed so hard that he could hardly speak. The remaining Strauss siblings had never seen anything more terrifying in their lives than Natsu's glaring gaze, his coal-black eyes turning a furious shade of crimson red, cold and lifeless. They were both accustomed to seeing the vibrant almost windows into fairy tale's soul, but now it appeared as though they were looking directly into God's eyes, ruthlessly deciding whether to save or damn them. Everyone appeared to be suffocated by the heavy energy that Natsu was radiating as he approached Elfman slowly but steadily, his feet searing the flooring. Elfman was terrified, mostly because Natsu was moving so gently. Damn it. When Urza is angry, she walks like that as Natsu arrived and grabbed him by the throat with one hand, while staring him in the eyes. Elfman thought helplessly and asked as he struggled to breathe. Who took her life? Elfman looked fearfully at his judge, wondering what would happen if he told him. Maybe you didn't hear me the first time. Who killed her? Stuttering, Elfman said, It was. Damn it. Who killed her? Who killed Lysana? Said Natsu, throwing him to the ground and setting his hands on fire. Elfman simply exclaimed, I did. Natsu's hands dropped to his sides as everyone gasped. No, Elfman. It was my fault, I didn't weaken it enough. Ymir attempted to interrupt. No? Elfman yelled, despite the pain, I was the one who wasn't strong enough. It was my fault. I should have been able to subdue the beast. I was her older brother. I wasn't enough of a man. It was my duty to protect her, and I failed. Even though the heat felt like it would melt them to a puddle, Natsu simply stared at them as his auras swelled, overwhelming Makarov, Urza, and Gree, who had all been watching, and were too astonished to do anything to defend them. When Natsu turned to go, everyone breathed because the aura's disappearance seemed like a mountain had been lifted from overshadowing them. It was nearly as painful for Elfman and Murahan to watch Natsu turn and walk away without saying anything as it was to watch Lysana fly, hit by the beast, and appear to be stuck in time. With his back to them, Natsu whispered, You are lucky. The words seemed colder than Gree's ice. Were you not her siblings, I would have ended you myself, but that's not what she would have wanted. But Lys Elfman attempted to beg. Don't say her name. Natsu was furious, you both lost that right when you failed to protect her. You promised no harm would come to her. Knowing all too well that he was correct, Elfman and Murahan were unable to do anything but stare while holding each other. They all started crying and embraced their remaining family members as Natsu simply left. Natsu gazed at the cabin where he and Lysana had spent so many of their early years together. Raising happy, agreeing to get married, hosting several sleepovers, and going on picnics. The sky itself appeared to mirror his emotions, with rain falling as though to release the unending tears he was unable to shed. No matter what, he would always be there for her. He found what he was looking for by looking about. A tall, broad boulder that would be ideal for shaping into what he needed. He immediately got to work, igniting his fists to shape the solid rock, the fire smoldering in the rain, but never extinguishing. That was Fire Dragon Slayer Meiho's power. Even though he was completely saturated, Natsu labored non-stop for several hours before finishing. Lysana's tomb, close to their hut. She would have preferred it. The fairy tale insignia, which she adored, was intricately etched above her name. When he was done carving, Natsu turned to face the hut and approached it cautiously. Reaching for the hut, he set his hands on fire again. And with it, his memories would die. In whatever weather, his Meiho would burn it. He started to touch the cottage, and... Now I wouldn't do that if I were you. Extinguishing his hand, Natsu screamed, Who said that? I did. Who? Where are you? Isn't it obvious? I'm you, or at least a part of you. Natsu stumbled, still searching for the speaker, W.H. Wood. You want to see her, don't you? After all, the grief you felt at her loss is the reason I woke up in the first place. I could feel it in your very soul, my soul, our soul. Who are you? Exclaimed Natsu. Now, you are getting troublesome. Let's go somewhere less conspicuous. Don't want people to think you've gone off the deep end or something like that. The world went dark for Natsu. The only thing he could see when he looked around was the oppressive darkness. Where am I? You're in your subconscious, in the realm where mind and soul intertwine. At least that's where Natsu believed they were when he heard footsteps and turned to face them. He caught sight of what appeared to be an old warrior. His arms, legs, and torso were all covered with crimson armor, which was worn over form-fitting black attire. He had a wild black hairstyle and a little face, but Natsu screamed when he reached his eyes. 3 tomes surrounded the pupil, and they were red. They were hypnotizing. You want to know who I am, right? Even though Natsu hardly noticed the inquiry, he responded, Yeah. It's simple, I am you. What do you mean? You are my reincarnation. You should know the story. Even after death, my Sharingan still worked, and I hypnotized the Shinigami into letting me keep myself, even in reincarnation. The only drawback was that it put my consciousness into a deep sleep, but your grief woke me up. You're... That's right. I am Goshichiha, and I have returned from the dead once more. Now, Lysana, you want to see her again, right? Yes. No matter what. Goshichiha's smile widened even more as he said, Well then, and he seemed even more menacing. Let me tell you about a plan of mine, one I called Tsuki no Mi. The fairy tale guild was being entered by 3 figures. The first was a man with dark hair who was conspicuously shirtless. He had a blue fairy tale guild mark on his right chest, and he was fairly well built. The following figure was a blue cat that can communicate and fly. It had a green backpack with a green fairy tale guild mark underneath. The last person there was a blonde girl who appeared to be dressed for cheerleading. She carried a set of silver and golden keys and a black whip. She was eager to earn a guild mark, but she didn't have one yet. These were Lucy Hertfilia, Gree Fullbuster, and Happy the cat. Lucy was thrilled. She would be able to join the guild of her dreams at last. All she wanted was for the folks guiding her to not be a flying cat and a stripper. The door had been eagerly opened, and she peered inside as a table almost severed her head. Kaya. She collapsed onto her butt before scurrying to stand up. She noticed that the guild was in complete disarray, resembling a tornado of people, glass, and furniture. When she noticed that the bar was largely undisturbed, she scurried to safety like a man in need of water. She reasoned, I suppose this explains why they destroy everything. Bree jumped in and gave a random guy a flying kick to the face, as she turned to ask him what was happening. With a weasel expression, the man questioned, what the hell was that for Bree? While touching his face. Bree replied, irritated, the salamander information you gave me was false. He shouted back, I told you it was only a rumor, you idiot. Bree punched him across the room, knocking him into Elfman and resuming the battle with fresh fire. Why you, he exclaimed. Lucy sulked at the bar table and moaned at the new pandemonium. Oh, you must be new. Lucy looked up to see Marahin Strauss, one of her favorite people. Is it always like this? She asked. The Sorcerer's Weekly always featured her as the pinup. Yes. It's always like this. Besides, Lucy cried out when her enormous brother decked Marahin. It's fun, isn't it? Lucy frantically tried to reintroduce her soul as it shot out of her. At last, she encountered Master Makarov, who, despite his intimidating demeanor, was actually quite skinny. However, he ended the altercation and delivered a powerful motivational speech. After receiving her guild stamp, Lucy and Marahin carried on discussing their numerous exploits at Harjan Port. As Lucy reached the scene where Aquarius ultimately destroyed the port, Marahin couldn't stop giggling. At last, Lucy had the opportunity to ask Marahin. Lucy said, regretting it as Marahin looked down right away, hey, Gree was searching for someone at Harjan. Who was it? Salamander. Who is he? Things hadn't been the same after Natsu departed. He was a dear friend. There was an accident, and he left. That was 3 years ago. We've been searching for him since. Elfman committed himself to the man mantra, and Marahin lost her power. When Lucy heard Gree slam one of the objectives onto the guild mission board, she chose not to pursue the matter further. He was comforting a tiny child who was grieving over his father when she turned around. That's Romeo. His dad took a mission, and he hasn't returned yet. Marahin replied. Lucy wondered, why is Gree so passionate about that? Mikao was our friend's teacher. So it's kind of a personal stake for us. Lucy made the decision to go to Mount Hackup with Gree and Happy. A person in a cloak was making her way into Magnolia as they did. Around the use of a Gensper technique to conceal his existence, he moved around the city inconspicuously, but that was exactly what he wanted everyone to notice. After traveling to the city's outskirts and into the nearby woodland, he eventually reached his destination, a modest house, bearing the signs Natsu and Happy's house. All he did was open the door. It was never locked. Who would break in, let alone discover a house in the woods, after all? He just glanced around. It was fairly dusty and showed little sign of life, save for the fact that Happy occasionally resided there. They grinned. Perfect. It's time for some covert remodeling. To the delight of a small Romeo, Lucy and Gree had returned from Mount Hackup with an injured Mikao. Later, they had parted ways, and Lucy had settled into her new flat. After showering and thinking back on their experiences, she went outside to discover Gree laying on her bed with just his underwear. She kicked him in an awkward spot, got dressed, and then gave him a lesson in celestial spirit Meho. She then made a contract with her new spirit, Plu. Until Happy screamed Lucy, Gree, and rushed in through the window. It was a pleasant evening. Gree hurriedly said, what's the matter, Happy? As they both stood up. There's a strange guy in our house. I don't know what to do, was Happy's terrified cry, and Gree at least sympathized with her situation. After all, he was still a child who had practically lost both of his parents, Natsu and her. Alright, lead us there. Ai-san. Happy led them into the cottage, which was located in the woodland. Lucy merely questioned why anyone would choose to live in a forest. That's because he lived in the forest as a kid with his adopted father. Huh? Lucy asked, breaking off her reverie. Gree, who seemed to understand her thoughts, stated, Natsu lived in the forest as a kid, and he didn't want to change that, so he built a house out here, and lived out here, at least, until he left. Natsu, so that's Salamander's name. Lucy thought till they arrived at the cottage, which she saw humorously looked like something from a fairy tale. When they noticed the light was on and the silhouette of a figure moving back and forth inside, they dove low. Bree gestured for Lucy to keep quiet as they made their way carefully to the entrance. Bree seized the knob of the front door, silently twisted it, opened it quickly, and jumped in while Lucy remained behind. Okay. Who the hell are you and what are you doing here? He cried at the cloaked person. No one was going to storm into his friend's house here. Lucy came in as soon as possible. Even while she lacked physical strength, she was at least proficient with the whip. She shouldn't be so proud of that, in my opinion. With a wave of his arms, the figure said, "It's not what you think. I live here." Bree began placing his hands together for his eyes to make magic, saying, "Hell no. My friend lives here." When the figure removed his hood, he asked, "You mean me?" Bree blinked. Hair of salmon. Verify. Canines with sharp edges. Verify. Eyes that are black. Verify. A scarf. Verify. Did he have hallucinations? He yelled, "Natsu," as loudly as he could. Natsu smiled. Lucy simply grimaced. It was going to be an exciting day tomorrow. Bree and Lucy virtually sprinted to the Fairy Tale Guild the following day. Though Happy flew by with excitement, Bree was more interested in dragging Lucy. The doors exploded open, and sprinted directly to the bar. As she polished her loyal glass, Murahin took note of their condition and said, "Oya, did something happen you two?" The guild wall exploded as Bree said, "You won't believe it, Murahin. Guess who's Baboom?" As they prepared their various forms of magic, everyone turned to face the wall and was astounded by what they saw. It had been 3 years since anyone had seen or heard from him. It was a still nearly identical Natsu Dragneel. There were some variations, though. His hair was shorter and now only reached his forehead, so it wasn't as wild. He had also exchanged his vest for a long coat with long sleeves, albeit his guild mark was visible due to a small cut along the upper arm of the right sleeve. But his clothes and scarf remained the same. Murahin and Elfman stood back, recalling his demeanor on the day he departed, but everyone crowded him, wondering where he had been and what he had been doing. After noticing this, Natsu approached them. As he approached the Strauss siblings, all of the guild members watched and held their breath. Remembering how terrifying he had been that day, almost like a judge, jury, and executioner, they trembled a little. Natsu just stepped in front of them, staring at them blankly, till he waved and grinned before leaving. Elfman and Mira fell back in relief as everyone began to rejoice. When Makarov arrived and greeted Natsu's return, another fairy fight and celebration broke out, with most of the participants getting wasted and fainting. At last, the wayward fairy was back. The following morning, Natsu was looking at the mission board and appeared busy, even though everyone was still unconscious from drinking. But in reality, he was engaged in a heated debate in his mind. "What made you decide to come back so abruptly?" ghosted Chiha inquired. Maybe a sudden sense of nostalgia. Perhaps it was Lysana's favorite spot. But how are you going to carry out the plan? Crucial elements are still missing. They will ultimately become suspicious if you search for them. And, they will fight against you under the guise of a fake peace. I am aware of this. That's precisely how I passed away. I'll come up with something. Finding them is the only thing left to do, and the only way to do it is to complete missions, which also pays me. Every hiding place is prepared and conveniently located. We also have the most crucial component. HMPH. But the keys are still needed. Natsu grinned as he saw the invisible tick mark on ghosted Chiha and said, "Don't worry so much, old man." He was happy to be back at last. But when he stormed into Gree's residence, he almost killed him. In any case, that would be useless right now. How does this task appear, I wonder? Chiha, the ghost, examined what he could see through Natsu's eyes. That's the mission of a mage. Never have I seen one that ridiculous or particular. I would much prefer go on a D-class mission or find that dumb tour. That's your opinion. The keys are in his possession. Without them, we can't use our small toy. When did you discover that information, then? And just when did you intend to share? A few bribes here and there, a couple death threats, and a few favors, Natsu smiled. Was reserving it for a unique event. All we need now is that one new mage. Luigi, what was her name again? Good luck. The name Luigi is for a boy. Anyway. Oh, she's here now. Lucy heard "Oi, Luigi," as she was heading over to pick up a mission. It's Lucy. She yelled back, only to realize who she was yelling at. Oops. Sorry. Didn't mean to shout. No problem. Hey, how would you like to take a mission? It's offering 200,000 jewel. Lucy obviously leaped at the chance, but she later regretted it after being ridiculed by an obese, perverted duke, well dressed as a maid. However, it was more than compensated for by Natsu's motion sickness. The accompanying Happy and Gree described the fundamentals of Natsu's magic, as well as its adverse repercussions. At the end, Lucy, Gree, Happy, and Natsu went to break in. To open the door from the inside, Natsu melted through the glass. Natsu simply smiled when he noticed Gree watching. What? You can't expect me to be gone 3 years and not pick up a few things. Including breaking and entering. Anyway, remind me why we're here again. All I know is that Lucy mentioned 200,000 jewels, so I was in. Gree just blinked. 2 million jewels now actually. The mission requester, KB I think, raised the reward when we got there. Anyway, our goal is to find and destroy your book, Daybreak. This guy, Duke Everlu, has it. Natsuo went on. Whatever, Flammabrain. What did you say, Ice Princess? Lucy interjected, saying, can we just get to this so I can get revenge on that stupid Duke? Ai-san. You know who it is. They all broke inside the mansion, and they were prepared to move forward after Happy gave Lucy a funny scare. Bree and Happy eventually began playing ninja, which made Natsuo giggle in his head at the irony. Until the ugly maid brigade revealed its ugly face, however. Later, they were all down for the count, even the head brute, after seeing one Karyu no Yakijeki. Fire Dragon's Wave. Bree and Lucy began searching for the book as soon as they arrived at the library. Bree looked back and said, Oi, Natsuo, do you have any idea what this book looks like? Natsuo. But Natsuo was no longer there. Where'd he go now? Here's the book. Lucy said, reaching for Daybreak, a book with a golden cover. They were both unaware that a silent presence was watching them. In the interim, with Natsuo. Natsuo had discreetly left to further his own goals. He was searching every chamber of Duke Everlu for the particular items in question. So far, he had discovered a gold-plated toilet, an ancient stack of some sort of Icha series, whatever the heck it was, and a room whose contents he would rather not reveal. For no specific reason, he said, Luigi was right when she said that this guy was perverted. Lucy. Whatever. Now, where would I take a valuable collection of antiques if I were a perverted old duke? He opened a door that revealed a massive treasure room. Bingo. Look, Madara inquired. A big-ass frying pan was being carried by two men standing behind him. One of them was a huge burly monster, and the other looked like an Asian martial artist. Is he making up for something? Natsuo pondered. Pay attention. Madara reprimanded. You are trespassing. We, the Vanished brothers, were hired to keep this mansion safe from intruders. Prepare to die. Natsuo had heard of them both during his travels and trainings. He had certainly been involved in some less than legal occurrences himself, so it was no surprise he knew the Vanished brothers of the Southern Wolves Mercenary Guild. He grinned savagely. It had been a while since he had seen some decent combat, so he was eager to fight. He pulled out two hidden kunai, let's begin, and hurried on. The quiet figure hurried forward and grabbed the book out of Lucy's hands, as she and Gree were discussing what to do with it. Hey. We own that. Technically, it's that fat old duke's, but you stole it from him, and I stole from you, so I guess that makes it mine, laughed the figure, who was now identified as a teenage kid. He was a dirty blonde with messy hair tied in a braid behind him, a form-fitting shirt that went about mid-forearm with the rest of it tied down with bandages, a white jacket with a strange symbol on its back that looked like clouds, and, finally, what appeared to be combat sandals. Lucy and Gree took in the boy's appearance, figuring he was about their age, and had strangely heterochromatic blue eyes, one of which was darker than the other. Why are you taking that book, and who are you? Gree insisted. Name's Hayonai, and I got word of a pretty good offer for this book, so I thought I'd cash in on that. The thereafter dubbed Hayo answered. Now, wait a moment. That book will not be discarded by any of you. I own it. Mine alone. As they searched the area for the cause of the sound, a hand suddenly emerged from the floor and attempted to grab Hayo's leg. Whoa, and he backflipped quickly, still holding on to the book as Duke Evelu burst from the ground. You're a speedy one, eh? It makes no difference. My book is still mine. No, old man. Fair and square, I stole. No, you took it from us, and we took it. Yeah, so it's now mine. Regardless, Hayo concluded, gesturing with one hand, Kaiten. Nizumi Kadama. Mouse hairball is the fire style, and he spit a blue fireball that oddly resembled a mouse, which then split into multiple projectiles. Everyone dodged, except Duke Everlu, who was quickly fried by it. Hayo went to escape, until he caught sight of Happy. Instantly, his love of cats took over and he attempted to glomp Happy. You probably already know why he likes cats so much. At least until he heard, Ice Make. Pillar. Aw, damn it. Duke Everlu clutched a golden key as the explosion shook the library. The scene had changed significantly since Natsuo returned, with the Vanished brothers in two different locations, fires of all hues raging throughout the treasure room, and molten gold pouring everywhere. Both were dead, the larger one with many kunai impaled in him, and the shorter one with only the handle of his pan thrust through him. Natsuo made a few hand gestures in Kaiten. Dikaku no Spirit Art. Fantastic artwork by Fireball Spirit. He then started to wake up, at least until the enormous pink-haired maid rushed through the floor and seized him. Natsuo was about to strike back, but they were both abruptly transported to the library. What everyone appeared to agree. When he turned to face whoever launched, he saw Hayo, and his eyes widened in recognition. That's, he thought. Later. Deal with this now. Ghost Chiha ordered. Karyu no Kon. Natsuo nodded in silent understanding and prepared his strongest attack. Virgo was the giant maid, apparently. The brilliant radiance of the fire dragon just to hear Kaiten. Gonizumi Kadama. Great Mouse Hairball is the fire style. He felt the book being taken from him, and when he turned around, he saw Natsuo tossing the book to Lucy. Hayo was also launching a huge blue fireball of his own when all of their attacks combined into one and erupted, destroying a large portion of the home at once. They decided to book it after Gree interrupted him as he was about to protest, saying, not to rain on the parade or anything, but we might want to run before the army comes. Natsuo only stared at him, much to Hayo's discomfiture, after they had begun conversing with their weird new buddy, whom Lucy, Gree, and Happy all adored right away. So you're descended from an old clan, and that's why you also have that strange emblem on your back, Lucy inquired. Indeed, this emblem belonged to Kumagakure, our ancient home, and my ancestor was Ichido Nai. We do what we can because finding a job these days is more difficult. So, you sought to take our job for that reason. Lucy cast a sorrowful glance down. Oh, it's okay. There are plenty more out there. In any case, I'd better go home. I don't want to bother my mother. Then Lucy slammed her fist into her palm, and he disappeared in a spray of smoke. Go. I neglected to inquire about his peculiar methods. I have never previously witnessed magic performed with hand signals. Who knows, Gree said, you might soon have another opportunity. What are your thoughts, Flammable? Where in heck did he disappear? To Gree yelled, discovering Natsuo had vanished once more. A message then flew down, which he quickly picked up and read. To Happy, Ice Princess, and Luigi. Go finish the assignment. You can retain the prize money. I'm going to investigate a quite believable tale about Igneel in the nearby town. I'll be returning in about a week. Regards, Natsuo. Natsuo. Gree said, just crushing the paper in his hands and getting a huge tick mark on his body. I'm going to kill you when you return. Man, I'm disappointed that I couldn't earn the reward money. That would have been so useful. But, don't you think, Matatabi, they were kind people? Hayo reflected as he took the easy route home. The big Biju replied from inside, yes, my little kitten. Boy. Stop referring to me as kitten, I told you. Anything, kitten? Matatabi merely purred in laughter. The conflict had ended so long ago that even Jinchuriki eventually vanished from the annals of history. In order to conceal their existence, the Biju were nevertheless kept sealed. The drawback is that the majority of Jinchuriki have since never met. She hadn't spoken to her siblings in a very long time, and that time had increased since Kurama vanished. She continued to think about this for a little while longer, until she sensed a presence that she had assumed had vanished long ago. Kitten. Take care. There's going to be something. With his nails spread wide, Hayo was immediately on high alert and prepared to attack the danger. Matatabi never pays this much attention. Until space began to warp about him, he kept an eye out, thinking that whoever was approaching must be strong. He leaped back fast. Something emerged, and the room started to swirl into a single point. While Matatabi's eyes expanded in shock, Hayo's gaze was confused. In addition to his short, spiky black hair, the man donned an orange mask that spiraled into his right eye. Lastly, he put on gloves and a black coat with a collar that reached his chin, which was embroidered with crimson clouds. Hayo questioned, who the hell are you? My name's Toby, exclaimed the odd man. Matatabi yelled in alarm, he even speaks the same way. The Akatsuki. But Hayo was not listening. Why are you following me? It's simple. I'm here to capture you. You have something I want, replied Toby. Nice try, Kaden. Mizumi Kadama. Fire style. Mouse hairball. He said, shooting Toby with a shotgun before charging ahead. He hurried through the flames and slashed as the fireball struck. After landing, he quickly glanced back but saw no corpse. Where'd he go? Under you, kitten. Below him, Hayo could see a number of explosive mines. Just before they burst, he scampered away. Toby immediately materialized behind him and yelled, explosive landmine spear dart. Hayo slashed back, only to discover his attacks were through him. Hayo retreated once more after Toby produced a hand seal. Whack-a-mole spear dart. Hayo braced himself, but nothing materialized. Toby stroked the back of his head and said, sorry, that's all this technique does. But it just made Hayo angry. He was the Nibi no Nekomata's Jinchuriki, and he would not tolerate this slight. Give me your power, Matatabi. He's out of your league, if this is who I believe him to be. I don't care. Then, Matatabi sighed, very well. As his fangs sharpened and his pupils slitted like a cat's, Hayo was engulfed in a bright red aura of core energy. He surged forward and started repeatedly cutting at Toby, but his blows kept fading. Hayo was becoming very angry. Why wouldn't you take me seriously? Toby had to avoid saying, now Hayo. This time. He ought to be exposed. Hayo struck Toby's face with his core energy tail when Matatabi gave the order. He crashed into numerous trees as he flew back through the jungle. An unpleasant vibe pervaded the air, making Hayo feel more oppressed. With a much darker tone, Toby questioned, you want me to take you seriously? What the devil? He became someone else, Hayo pondered. Toby stood up, revealing both of his eyes as a portion of his mask fell down. But his gaze remained downward. He looked up and said, I'll let you have it then. 3 tomos surrounded the pupil of his red eyes, which soon changed into a spiraling circle with 3 bars between the tomo. I get it as blue flames encircled him and rose higher and higher, until the Nibi no Nakamata was exposed in all its radiance. Hayo dropped to his knees. Go Shichiha. I don't know how you are still alive, but you will die now. Matatabi yelled as she stood across from Toby. She then charged the Biju's most potent weapon, the tailed beast bomb, and fired. Shit. Toby hurriedly got his own spear painting ready as the sphere got closer. Boom. One scarlet-haired mage noticed the explosion, which could be seen for miles, and she hurried to the scene. As soon as the smoke cleared, Matatabi hurried to look for any remains. If she discovered him still alive, she would beat him up for what he had done so many years prior. Who's this guy, Matatabi? He's really agitating you, Hayo inquired. Her voice snarled, Go Shichiha. What? He died years ago, didn't he? That's what I also believed. It seems like he found a means to avoid dying, but Iangshu was hit across the now demolished field by a gigantic skeletal hand. Matatabi. Then she was pinned by falling trees. When Matatabi looked up, he saw the Susanoo, the ultimate technique. It was constructing a massive Amaterasu flame arrow. As Matatabi strained to escape the pin, Toby let go of the arrow, but it was too late. Enten. Kagutsuchi. Blaze release. Added Tool Earth Lord. The explosion had left Matatabi badly injured, so she was caught off guard when Toby showed up and confronted her directly. Shit. Tsukiyomi. Matatabi fell and disintegrated in a matter of seconds, leaving only Hayo's unconscious body. The remainder of Toby's mask fell away in a matter of seconds, exposing the face of a Natsu Dragneel, albeit one with magically colored black hair, and he fell to one knee. Grasping his arm, he said it while wailing in agony. That was more difficult than I anticipated. HMPH. After all, you were up against one of the 9 Biju. You misjudged the Jinchuriki, of course. Instead of using the sneak attack, you wanted to fight Madara, chastised Natsu, who merely said nothing. Go to the hiding place. Someone will undoubtedly be drawn to the explosions. After staggering to the body and picking it up, Natsu teleported off. Just then, the red-haired sorceress also showed up. She quickly reported back to her guild after looking around for any survivors and finding none. She had more pressing issues to deal with, namely One Eisenwald guild. But when Natsu reached the cave, he dropped Hayo's body with little concern. He took out his Akatsuki ring, the one bearing the king kanji, and placed it on his left thumb. He started to make the following signs. I, Inu, Tori, Seru, and Hitsuji. Now then. Kuchiyu Snow Spear Dart. Summoning Spear Dart. A huge hulking figure emerged along with a tremendous puff of smoke. 9 eyes were conspicuously closed, and it had 2 hands with the palms and fingers up. It also clutched a scroll in its jaws and had many protuberances from its back. This was the husk of the Jubi, the 10-tailed monster, and the demonic statue of the outer path, the Jido Meizo. With Hayo's body in front of it, Natsu leaped onto the thumb of his left hand and started a new series of hand seals. As blue energy manifested as 9 dragons, the scroll in the mouth dropped to the ground. As the kanji for king emerged on the thumb he was standing on, Natsu completed his hand seals and declared his method. Fuin Spear Dart. Genryu Kaiufijin. Sealing Spear Dart. Phantom Dragon's 9 consuming seal. The calm breeze flowed through the area, making it a pleasant and serene day in the land of Fiori. But looks can be deceiving, particularly if you peek beneath the surface. A tragedy is starting to play out in a subterranean cave not far from Magnolia. One that will set off a series of events that will ultimately determine humanity's freedom. Standing atop the Jido Meizo, the demonic statue of the outer path, Natsu Dragneel, a fairy tale mage and reincarnation of the most cunning shinobi, Ghost Uchiha, is carrying out this plan in this cavern by removing the 2-tailed demon cat, Nibi no Nakamata, from its current Jinchuriki, Hayonai, who is descended from renowned Komagakure shinobi, Yujido Nai. Capturing the Jinchuriki did not, however, come without repercussions. Natsu's Akatsuki attire was torn and bruised, and he was on the verge of fainting. He was on the verge of giving up when he heard his mentor's voice, as he was barely able to keep sealing. Don't stop. Before you take a break, you will seal the Biju. But over 7 days have passed. I'm on the verge of fainting. You're to blame for that. Instead of attempting to eliminate the Biju quickly, you decided to take it on head-on. You're being punished with this. I guess the next time, you'll be careful to learn from your mistakes. Isn't it possible for us to have more members? Sealing the Biju was far more effective with all 10 members, but core energy is required to power the Jido Meizo, so it's wishful thinking, Ghost Uchiha murmured. The statue is too costly to take a chance on magic, and I have no idea what type of effects it might have. I don't think any shinobi would still want to help bring the Akatsuki back to life and initiate Tsuki no Mi. Alright. Natsu glanced at the Jido Meizo and noticed that one of its eyes was nearly open. He interrupted his talk with Ghost Uchiha there and buried himself in his own thoughts, saying, at least we're almost done. It's only the beginning. Lisana, I'll see you again. As the red core energy of Matatabi was gradually drawn from him, he turned to face the center of the Jido Meizo, and saw Hayonai's corpse, encircled by the blue ceiling spirit art Genryu Kyufijin, Phantom Dragon's 9 consuming seal. Hayo's perspective. Hayo was unable to see or feel anything. He simply found himself adrift in emptiness. Worst of all, he felt completely isolated. Matatabi was always with him, but he was unable to sense her at the moment. He wanted to inquire where she was and call her name, but he was unable to do any of those things. He could only move his eyes, and that wasn't much at all. It was simply dark. He simply gazed into the darkness, blinking in confusion as a tiny speck of light began to appear. What is that? As it gradually grew brighter, all he could do was think. At the light, he closed his eyes, only to be overcome by it. When he opened his eyes, he was at home. What the devil, he pondered, perplexed by his surroundings. He knew where he was. The table he unintentionally set on fire while practicing his cadence spirit art in the house, their old cat, and his mother's antique vase before she sold it to help raise Hayo. Although it was his home 11 years ago, it was still his home. Mom. Hayo called out to the door, only to see a younger version of himself. This must have happened when he was 4 or 5 years old. He had forgotten the cuddly animal he normally carried with him and his old favorite tiger print shirt. To his mother's chagrin, he always referred to it as Tiger even though it was a lion. He also wore his hair much shorter at that time. After he reached adolescence, he grew it out since he could never tolerate it being short. However, how Hayo could only look at the miniature version of himself in bewilderment before his tiny replica passed right through him. Well, wait, I'm small. I don't seem to exist, and there are things in my house that haven't been there in a long time. Perhaps these are my recollections. However, why am I here? Hayo continued to think about this until he heard a voice that always brought him joy. Hayo turned to face his mother, a little older woman, and asked, "What is it, dear?" She had gotten married later in life, had a son named Hayo, and, in spite of her advanced age, was constantly working to support him. This was particularly difficult after she suffered a leg injury that left her unable to function as a shinobi. After that, she was always in need of a walking stick. She was still a really attractive woman, though. Her face was beginning to wrinkle, but her heterochromatic eyes still had the intense friendliness that only mothers could have, and her hair had begun to take on that silvery hue that only blondes could acquire as they grew older. Little Hayo bounced up and down, asking, "Can you tell me another story? Please, 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 please." He wondered how his mother could tolerate him. She limped to her old recliner and sat down slowly and cautiously, saying, "Very well then. Come sit down on mommy's lap." As Hayo excitedly ascended, his mother reprimanded him, saying, "Please be careful, Hayo, I'm not as sturdy as I used to be." "Alright." His mother started, glancing at their photographs. Now, where we again? There were a variety of people on them, including a group of dark-skinned shinobi who all wore an odd hat with the kanji for lightning on it, a green-haired woman, a black man wearing odd shades, a blonde man with intriguing whisker marks, and, most obviously, a dirty blonde woman with dark eyes and fair skin. She pointed to the fourth image with the dark-skinned and started telling the tale. "That's the Yondaime Reikage, eh? He was famous many years ago for the speed at which he could travel. He could use his rating to increase his speed to many times a regular man. He was considered the fastest man alive for many years, until a hide ninja village's Yondaime Hokage, the Kairoi Senkoi, the Yellow Flash, stole that title from him. However, he was still a real juggernaut in battle. He, together with the other Kage of his time, stood together against the greatest foe this world has ever faced, perhaps even worse than the Kuroi Madashi, Zeref, that the mages nowadays seem to speak of in tales." She stopped to catch her breath. That man was Gosutsuha. He sought to enslave the world for the sake of peace. However, together with the Kage, and a group of 3 hide ninja village shinobi, they were able to stop the madman, but the madman was not without cost. She pointed to the remaining portraits. Gosutsuha had killed most of these people, including sadly our ancestor, Yujido Nai, but not before she had left a single heir, who we can proudly call ourselves descendants of. Gosutsuha, that man, desired to use the power that each of them possessed, in order to establish his goals and reform the Jubi, but he was stopped. At last, she gestured to the biggest image above them, a blue flaming two-tailed cat painted in the middle of roaring, with Yujido standing next to it. When comparing the two creatures' sizes, Yujido could almost touch the middle of the beast's shin. That power was the 9 Biju, of which you see the two-tailed demon cat. Thanks to the hide ninja village shinobi, we now know her name is Matatabi. After being freed from Gosutsuha's clutches, she agreed to being resealed, and for her to fade into legend, so that she and her brethren could never again be used for war. "And she's sealed inside me, right?" stated little Hayo once more. Upon glancing at Hayo, his mother grinned and said, "Yes. Cool. Do you think I can talk with her someday?" "I'm sure you will someday, and I believe that you will be the best of friends," his mother said, looking off into the distance. Hayo smiled tenderly as he observed the situation. Since he truly loved his mother, he was always delighted to see the joy on her face. He watched as the scene vanished and was replaced by a fresh one. This one looked more like a long corridor, with some water in it, almost like a sewer, and Hayo recognized it. He met Matatabi there for the first time. Once more, he recognized himself, a little older. He must have been 8 or 9 years old, but he maintained his humor. "Hello. Is anyone there?" yelled little Hayo as he looked into the hallway's gloom. Little Hayo moaned as he looked into the darkness once more, only to hear a rumbling spread around the floor. He was astounded to see a huge fire cat leap into the hallway, fall with a spectacular flare, and emit gorgeous blue flames. It yelled, "Who dares disturb the Nibi?" "I do," said little Hayo, raising his hand joyfully. "And why should I not eat you like the little morsel you are?" Hayo began to stutter. Well, I'm your Jai Jinchuriki, as so it thought I might get to know you." As he began to become a little frightened. In all its splendor, the two-tailed cat rose and said, "Then you leave me no choice." It lowered its head, and Hayo closed his eyes in terror, expecting to be devoured, only to discover something wet. He saw the Biju licking him when he opened his eyes. Why are you licking me?" "What? A mother can't lick her own kitten. Don't you know anything about cats?" the Nibi asked with a smirk on her face. Anyway, I'm sorry about that little scare. I just got so bored waiting for you to come. I believe formal introductions are in place. I'm the Nibi no Nakamata, but you can call me Matatabi. I'm Hayonai. Nice to meet you. Do you have any goals?" "Well, I haven't really thought about it, but I want to be the fastest shinobi ever." "Oh, why's that?" "Because the Yondaime Reikage was the fastest until the Yondaime Hokage took that title from it. So I want to get it back for him." With a smile, Matatabi said, "I'm glad you have something." She approached Hayo and lay down, encircling him like a mother cat would her young. Apparently unaffected by her burning body, Hayo also lied down and gave her a hug. "I'm sure we'll get along just fine, my little kitten." At that, Hayo almost started crying. Matatabi was his best buddy, despite the fact that she occasionally acted as a mother figure. He watched a number of scenes unfold, all in which she had been there for him. That was the one that exploded in his face immediately following his first attempt at Kaiten. She once assisted him after his mother became ill, and it was uncertain whether or not she would survive. Then, after his jerk of a father abandoned them, she allowed him to cry. The final scene, the most recent one, finally appeared. His current age, Hayo, was discussing a new job he had obtained with his mother. Their bills were really beginning to mount, and his mother had just experienced some health issues that made it difficult for her to walk. He held out a piece of paper, and he knew it was the one that would bring daybreak back. "Are you sure that you want to do this, Hayo? It's possible that some mages have already taken it, and I don't want you to get hurt," was Hayo's mother's attempt to dissuade him from doing it. Hayo simply waved her off. "I'll be fine, Mom. Besides, if push comes to shove, I've got Matatabi with me. Come on, don't you have a little faith in me?" She said, "I do, it's just I have a bad feeling, and mothers always trust their instincts." "I'll be fine, Mom. You need this job. If this succeeds, we won't have to worry about your health bills ever again," Hayo said, placing his hands on her shoulders. "Just please be careful. Don't leave me," she murmured, seeming defeated. As she left, Hayo said, "I promise." Third-person point of view. As the last of the Biju's core energy left Hayo, Natsuyu watched. The second eye scanned the area several times before staying motionless. Hayo started to fall as the statue's lips closed, and the core energy seal broke. Natsuyu sensed the animosity aimed at him, though, as Matatabi's frantic voice yelled inside the statue, "Hayo. No, my kitten. Not again. Damn you, Ghost Uchiha. Damn you straight to hell." And the statue's lips shut. "No?" Hayo stammered out, "Matatabi." And his hand fell to the ground. He then spoke again, "Mom. I'm sorry. I couldn't keep my promise." And his eyes glazed over as his soul departed to oblivion, with a single tear streaming down his face. Natsuyu leaped from the Jito Meizo's grasp, but he barely made it to the ground since he was so worn out. He then approached the corpse gently and examined it. "I'm not sure if we should bury it or whatever." In response, Ghost Uchiha said icily, "What do you mean by we? The body belongs to you. Regardless, it makes no difference. In any case, he's dead. Simply throw it away." "Fine." Natsuyu stepped up to Hayo's body and grabbed it up before teleporting back to Magnolia and activating Kamui. It had taken so long to shut the Nibi that night had fallen. He carried Hayo's body as he made his way back to Fairy Tail's guild hall. "This ought to be good. Get rid of it," Ghost Uchiha ordered. Natsuyu replied, "Whatever," and threw Hayo's body into the canal. "Don't let anyone see you, please. We cannot afford to be found out so quickly." "Taken care of already, old man." In response, Natsuyu said, "I put up a Genspert art. Impressive." He then fell silent for the time being. Natsuyu threw away his shattered spiral mask and continued to walk in the direction of the guild hall. He also slipped out of his torn Akatsuki cloak, hurled it into the air, and inhaled Karyu no Hoko, Fire Dragon's breath, before igniting it with a fire breath. It was usually said by Ghost Uchiha to leave no evidence. However, he just burned a whole piece of pavement. Dude, he's probably going to harp on me again for that. Oh no. Urza is worse than him, he imagined Natsuyu raving. Ultimately, he had to wear new clothing because the old one had also been wrecked. When he reached the door to Fairy Tail's hall, he attempted to enter it, but discovered that it was locked. He smiled and prepared his fist, saying, well, I guess it's nighttime. Normally, I'd enter quietly, but this time, I want to do things my way. Karyu no Tekken. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. He exclaimed, setting his fist on fire, and blew the doors off their hinges. Geez, I haven't slept in 7 days, he said, yawning as he entered and grabbed a table in the back. Yeah, it's all for world peace and all, but couldn't bringing peace be easier? Unaware of the cries when a woman discovered Hayo's lifeless body floating in the canal, he immediately dozed off, daydreaming of better days. It doesn't help that I have a slave driver in my thoughts. The following day, Master Makarov was walking back into Magnolia with Gri, Lucy, Happy, Urza, and Elfman. Urza was carrying Master Makarov, since he was still upset over the Guildmaster Hall being destroyed by Fairy Tail, which meant he had more paperwork to do. Lucy said, but Master, we still stopped Eisenwald. Makarov shouted back, couldn't you have done it without destroying everything? Boy, it was a demon of Seraph we were talking about. You can't go fight one of those things without some destruction. Gri responded. Makarov exclaimed, wah. As Urza abruptly halted and let him go. Urza, what was that for? I apologize, Master. It was my fault that we couldn't stop Eisenwald before they unleashed Lullaby. Had I been quicker, this could have been avoided. Please hit me. Urza bowed quickly as he turned to face Makarov. Makarov simply waved his hands, expressing some anxiety about Urza's willingness to receive correction. He might agree in any other circumstance, but not in this one. At that notion, he drooled a little and smiled perversely before shaking his head to clear his mind. Regardless of the destruction, you nevertheless stopped Eisenwald and saved countless lives, so consider it forgiven. Master is forgiving as always, because he's a man. Elfman. I-san. You know who it is. Nevertheless, I'm glad to finally get back to my nice and tidy guild hall. A quick stroll later. Makarov was looking at the guild hall door with wide eyes. What is this? The wooden doors of the guild were crushed to pieces. When he left, they weren't like that. He made a beeline for Mira as soon as he noticed her picking up the shattered pieces. Mirahin. Mira recognized everyone as she looked up from her sweeping. Oh, welcome back, Master. Everyone. Makarov almost shouted at her, never mind that. What happened to my doors? Who's paying for them? At her. Urza's eye twitched at the news that Natsu was back, and Gri and Lucy began to perspire as they felt some magical pressure from her. Oh, I'm not sure myself, but I think Natsu smashed them in. When I came to unlock the guild, I found the doors smashed in, and Natsu completely passed out asleep on one of the tables. I'm glad he's back again. I was worried he wouldn't return again after that mission with Gri and Lucy. She gave them a death gaze. So, Natsu's back, huh? That's a little fact that you seem to forget to mention, you two, she said. We're sorry, said Gri and Lucy as they huddled closer. HMPH, that's because Urza's a man. Elfman simply crossed his arms, and Urza punched him into the wall. At least you get points for stupidity. I said Happy once more. Still furious, Urza went to Mira, who was now grinning in a little frightful way. Where is Natsu now? Mira looked inside. Oh, he's over there still passed out on the table. He must have been looking for Igneel pretty hard. That's why Lucy and Gri said he left. As everyone solemnly lamented the Fire Dragon Slayer's passing, Urza stomped inside. May he rest in peace, they all thought. I-san every one of them blinked. Was this something they heard in their minds? Happy, who had just flown there eating a fish, was the center of attention. What? Questioned Happy, looking up. Natsu Dragneel. Urza rushed over to the table and seized the Slayer by the neck, violently shaking him. He stammered, his eyes half open. Wah. Natsu. You leave for 3 years without telling anyone, and I come back to find out that not only were you back, but you left again for a week. This behavior is absolutely unacceptable. We are your family, and you can't just leave us behind. Urza began to yell, shaking him violently as she did so. Her eyes glowed red, and everyone started to hide in fear as Urza's aura turned frightening. With clouded eyes, Natsu said, Urza. Let go of me. Now. Bree felt warm all of a sudden, Happy felt sad, Lucy wanted to burn her book, Levy wanted to drop her book and go to a fitness class, Elfman thought that education was suddenly manly, Kana wanted to go to rehab, Wakaba wanted to quit smoking, Vegeta wanted to stop dancing, and Makarov wanted to stop his perverted ways. Has Natsu just confronted Urza? Urza tightened her hold and asked, what did you say? Natsu commanded, leave me now. I'm tired and just want to sleep. Urza's eyes widened as she felt a sharp jolt in her gut. You come back suddenly and think you can just order us around, Natsu. Well, she said. Ugh. Natsu had just delivered a hard jab to her gut. Everyone in Fairy Tail appeared to have frozen over, and she was there, trapped in midair. Then Urza was thrown backwards by Natsu's arm flex. However, that wasn't the thing that truly left them speechless. Urza exclaimed, Kai. As she flew back inside the Magnolia Cathedral after leaving the guild. Staring, Bree said, Oi, did Urza just? That wasn't very manly. Elfman continued. Just laughing, Murahan said, it was actually kind of cute. Lucy interrupted, what kind of monsters are you people? Why couldn't anyone in this place act normally? Natsu simply yawned and fell back asleep after watching Urza tumble into the distance. At that, everyone immediately started to perspire. He treated it like nothing after punching Urza a few kilometers away. What on earth has he been doing for training? Following Urza's return, Urza had eventually returned to the group, her armor now heavily bandaged, her face threatening emasculation and death to anyone who dared to mention that incident. Before Makarov cleared his throat, the others were all trying not to laugh. The grim expression on her eyes, as well as on everyone else's, made him regret what he had spoken. So, Murahan, did anything happen while we were away? Oh, well, somebody was murdered. Lucy added, what? Murdered? Yeah, rumor has it that they found a body floating in the canal. Wakaba just went to go get a newspaper to find out what else they have on it. They turned to see a rather gaunt older woman who was using a walking stick to get by. Excuse me. Her long silver hair was graying, and her skin was light. A face with odd heterochromatic eyes and creases that were now noticeable due to anxiety. Something clearly kept her going despite the fact that she appeared really exhausted from travel. Yes? Murahan approached, trying to calm the visibly upset woman with her reassuring smile. Is this fairy tale? Yes it is. Oh thank Kami. I have been stopping by all these guilds all over the place and... What do you need that you have to go by so many guilds? I need to file a job request. The elderly lady appeared to become increasingly anxious. I'm looking for my missing boy. He went out on a mission and I haven't seen him since. His name was Hayonai. Lucy Angri's gazes widened, and he said he would back from his mission soon, but it's been 7 days, and I've heard nothing, not a peep from him. I'm worried something terrible has happened to him, and I don't know what I'd do. She grabbed Murahan and said, please. You're one of the strongest guilds there are. Can't you do something? Ma'am, we'll do everything in our power to help you. I just need you to calm down. Now could you give me your name? Said Master Makarov, as she looked down after the woman stopped when she was held by a hand. The woman swallowed, as if she had somewhat calmed down. My name is Angora Nai. When Makarov led Angora to the table, his voice trailed off. That's a beautiful name. Now, if you would come with me over to this table. Normally I'd take people up to my office, but in your condition, I don't think that's feasible. Now we just need a description and... Makarov's smile appeared to widen. Lucy was just staring at Murahan. I know. We get so used to his usual antics that we can sometimes forget why he is the master. He's great at dealing with people in various states of emotion. Bree sighed. It's not just that. It's, well, we saw Hayonai 7 days ago, before he went missing. At that, Urza turned. Where did you encounter him? Happy chimed up, we saw him at Shiratsum town. He tried to steal our book. And he tried to hug the life out of me. He was a really cool person. Lucy added, he could use blue fire, and he could use magic using weird hand gestures. We meant to ask him more about it, but he vanished before we could. We were going to go after him, but Natsu left to go look after Ignil, so we left. Wakaba entered with a newspaper and said, Oi, here's the news article on the murder. Everyone in Fairy Tale hurried to see what was known about one of Magnolia's more unusual crimes, that is, until Lucy gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. Bree, too, was staring wide-eyed, utterly stunned. Murahan stated, what's the matter Lucy? That. Lucy said, gesturing to the artist's sketch of the murder victim's alleged lifelike appearance. Urza said, who? Do you recognize them? That's Hayo. That's Angora's kid. Bree slammed his palm down, exclaiming, damn it. Levy started reading the newspaper. At approximately 1:30 a.m. in the morning, a civilian who has chosen to remain anonymous found the unidentified victim's body floating in the Magnolia Canal. Based on the temperature of the body and the lack of rigor mortis, officials have concluded that the victim had not been dead for long. Suicide has been ruled out based on the injuries on the body, the evidence of which indicates that the victim had been in some sort of scuffle. The cause of death has not yet been identified, but forensics has tied the victim to an unidentified explosion occurring 7 days ago in the forests of Shiratsum town. The nature of the incident is relatively unknown, but it has caused severe collateral damage. This time Urza took the table. I was there. I was there just after the explosion had occurred, but I found nothing. If only I had looked more for clues. I might have prevented this. Urza, you aren't at fault at all. There's no way even you could have predicted this, Murahan said, grabbing her shoulder. But still. Bree asked, Oi, how are we gonna break this to her? Natsu sighed and stood up, but they didn't see him stir. I don't know. As Master Makarov escorted Angor back to the main group, Bree, Lucy, Urza, and Mira held their breath, unsure of what to do. Everyone wishes he hadn't said, alright, everyone. Angor has asked if we can help find her missing child. If you know anything, please speak up. Well, asking, what is the matter? Makarov said. What is it? Do you know something? Do you know where my baby is? Lucy began. There isn't an easy way to break this out. But a firm voice cut her off. The guild hall fell silent as everyone gazed at the resident dragon slayer. Hayo was found dead, murdered last night. His expression was completely lifeless. Angora appeared on the verge of breaking. Natsu approached her. Elfman and Murahin glanced down at that moment and said, I'm sorry for your loss, but we all lose somebody. Natsu turned to leave, but he was halted when he felt a sword against his back. You'll see him again one day. I promise. Urza shouted, Natsu. How could you? Even while he was turned away from Mira and Elfman, they could see his scowl. She was bound to find out eventually. It's better we tell her now, than having her find out from someone else. Even though Natsu may have forgiven them, the wounds still exist. Now I'm going home. Bree interrupted Urza as she appeared to be about to follow him, saying, Urza. You need to relax. We have bigger things we need to worry about. Urza turned around just as Angora started crying. Hayo's dead. My baby's dead. First his father left me, now you too, Hayo. Both you and Matatabi. You promised you would be back. You promised me. But, you went out, because we needed the money. Angora gripped her walking stick so tightly that it cracked as she began to go into hysterics, despite Makarov's attempts to console her. Makarov attempted to insert, please Miss Angora, please try to calm yourself. There, Angora shivered until she clutched her chest in agony and passed out. It's all my fault. It's my fault Hayo's dead. He's all I have left, and he's gone. Lucy, Angora, hurried over to her. Makarov commanded, Jet. Run to Poryusika, and grab her. Now. Using his speed magic, Jet took off quickly and ran faster than he had ever run before, in order to capture Poryusika. It's just incredible what people can do when others are in peril. Without even stopping to glance, he sprinted past Natsu, concentrated on his task. The unsaid sentiments of Natsu were never heard by him. Angora, don't worry. You'll see Hayo again. Tsuki no I'll be successful and everything will be resolved. Makarov, meantime, was doing everything he could to keep Angora stable with the little healing magic he knew. Bree just grabbed his hands, completely helpless to do anything, while Lucy just stared there in complete horror. Elfman and Murahin simply gathered close as Lysana's memories came flooding back. Troy, prepare the injury bay, now. Levy, get some towels and water for her. Bree, try to make sure she stays cool. Everyone move. Now. Urza began yelling orders, and they didn't stop to gripe. Because they cared, Fairy Tail banded together to try to save this one woman's life. Jet also returned to the guild hall with the raging Poryusika. Why am I here, Makarov? I'm trying to work on my potions when this unconscious ruffian comes and drags me off. Shouted Poryusika, who walked over to inspect the unconscious Angora. Jet passed out as soon as he came. This is Angora Nai. Now help her. Makarov said, turning to face her. Poryusika switched to medic mode right away. Is the med bay set up? To which Urza said, yes. Poryusika said, good. Now get her there now. The fragile Angora was taken to the medical bay by the Fairy Tail wizards, who complied right away. They place her on one of the cots when they arrive. Get out now. Poryusika intervened and ejected the Fairy Tail mages. She started working right away, doing everything she could to help the unfortunate woman. Fairy Tail swarmed around Poryusika as she emerged from a tense waiting time, exhausted and weary. There was a long pause before Poryusika spoke. Angora Nai has passed away. In grief, the magicians bent their heads. He said, I will ensure that a request around the various guilds is cancelled, and I will make preparations for her funeral as well. I have never seen a human so physically devastated, Makarov. What happened? With his head lowered, Makarov said, her son was murdered. I may be able to heal a broken body, Makarov, but I can't heal a broken heart, Poryusika said, ching in contempt before leaving. She couldn't help but feel disgusted on the way back. This is why I can't stand humans. Their petty disputes always bring nothing but sorrow and misery. Indeed. Poryusika spun around, attempting to identify the person who had spoken. Who said that? Who's there? She said as she suddenly produced a broom. I'm armed and I know how to use this. The voice came from a black-haired man wearing an orange spiral mask and a black clothing with armor on the forearms. I'm sure you do. I can't tell how many Fairy Tail mages have faced the wrath of your broom. Sure-aged, who are you? Toby replied, I just came to deliver a message. Who I am is not of importance. To stay concealed for a little while longer, he had decided to abandon his Akatsuki clock. The day peace comes will be soon. And soon there will be no more misery. Poryusika stated sourly, as long as they have freedom, humans will never know peace. Poryusika saw as the man started to vanish into a spiral vortex and said, that might be true. He disappeared after saying, that is why I intend to take that freedom away. Poryusika was left to think about her problems. Despite being absent, Angora was buried with full Fairy Tail honors that evening at the Fairy Tail Guild. Master Makarov begged for her son Hayonai to be buried as well. For Fairy Tail, it was a depressing evening. They were powerless to halt the death of a lovely woman. Unlike their normal gatherings, they had a somber drinking night. Makarov, who usually sat on the bar table, turned to Urza and said, "Master. What is it, my child?" "Who is Matatabi?" Makarov took another gulp of his beer and asked, "What do you mean?" Angora mentioned that she lost both Hayo and Matatabi, so where is she? To be honest, I have no idea who Urza is. The following day, everyone at Fairy Tail was still depressed after Angora's death, and from what they could gather, she was a sweet woman. Since there weren't enough of those people, they were all very sad. When Natsu entered the room, the atmosphere became tense, and Urza went to confront him. Urza walked briskly over. Natsu answered coolly, "What?" Urza stutteringly said, "I owe you an apology." What everyone shouted. "I overreacted when you told Angora what we couldn't, and even though she passed away, it's possible that she didn't receive better treatment elsewhere." Urza bowed as everyone gasped at her antics. "Please hit me." "Urza," said Natsu, stopping after raising his hand. "It's okay. In your shoes, I would have done the same, but..." He smiled and lighted his fist on fire. "Alrighty," then punched Urza's face into the floor, leaving everyone speechless. Urza lay there with her face buried in the ground until she eventually stood up, shrugged off the blow, and looked at Natsu with a fixed look before Natsu, Gree, Lucy, Mira, Elfman, and everyone else began to laugh. Lucy eventually brushed it off, blotting away the tears that came from the laughter. "I needed that," she said. "Even so, Urza's performance is outstanding. I would anticipate that the strongest wizard in Fairy Tail would do it." "Hey. Most powerful mage. If I've ever heard bullshit like that, it's a lot." Lucy looked for the voice, until hey. "Supporter. Up here Urza may be strong, but she's not the strongest," she said, turning to face a blonde man with a lightning-shaped scar on his face, a purple shirt, and a coat slung over his shoulders like a cape. "Of all the fairy tales, I am the strongest." "Who's that jerk?" Lucy said to Gree in a whisper. "That's Master's grandson, Laxus." Gree responded, "He pretty much lets it go to his head." Well, when Laxus saw Natsu, he paused and said, "Well, look who's here. I heard about what you did to Urza. It was quite an accomplishment to punch the Titania all the way to Cardia Cathedral. Who knows, maybe you'll get on this second floor someday." "What's so special about the second floor?" Lucy murmured to Gree once more. "Only S-class magicians can use that. All of the S-class missions are located there." "Nice. Anyway," Laxus continued his rant, "it's unlikely that will occur anytime soon." He stopped at the sensation of cold steel against his neck, and looked back to see Natsu standing behind him with a murderous expression on his face, and what appeared to be a little knife in his hand. "Not after a crybaby like you leaves after the Natsu said. He came closer, whispering in a voice that only Laxus could hear, "Or I'll make sure you never speak again. Never talk about that again." Everyone was in wonder. "He might even give you a run for speed, Jet," Levy said. When had Natsu moved? "Natsu," instructed Makarov, "although I understand your anger, step down. You are not an S-class mage yet." To Makarov's relief, Natsu took his knife off Laxus's neck and leaped back down to the first floor. "Fine. Say what you may. I am the strongest of Fairy Tail, and nothing will change that." Laxus glared at him as if he were dying. Later that evening, Lucy's apartment. Lucy was writing to her mother while seated at her desk. "It was such a rough day yesterday, dear mama. Remember the boy we met in Duke Everly's mansion, the one I told you about? I recently learned that he was murdered in addition to passing away today. What sort of individual does that? Furthermore, his mother also entered and asked for him. Until Natsu told her outright, no one could tell her. After that, I wasn't sure how to feel about him, but he did mention that everyone loses someone, and it appears like he's lost someone significant. What's worse is that Angor, Hayo's mother, was devastated by the news and died shortly after. I only wish there was more we could have done. Mama, please offer her your prayers." But it appears that things have improved the next day. Urza and Natsu made amends, primarily by Natsu shoving Urza into the ground. I believe it helped that we all laughed quite a bit. When Laxus arrived, he essentially insulted everyone. Even if he is Master's grandchild, we will still tolerate him. I love you, though. At least Natsu put him in his proper place. Lucy, love. When she turned around after finishing her writing, Bree was standing behind her in his boxers. "Kaya." S.H. hurled a book at him, a dictionary, for added pain. "What are you doing here?" "And put some clothes on." Bree gripped the big lump on his head in agony and moaned, "Ugh. Whoever said words don't break your bones is a terrible liar." "I-san," exclaimed Happy. Lucy shouted, "What are you doing here too?" Happy gave out a piece of paper, which Lucy accepted but dropped when she noticed the red S stamped on it. "Bree asked me to give you this." Happy said. "What? This is an S-class mission. Why do you have this?" Bree stated, "It's so we can get stronger." "Stronger?" "Yeah. You saw how fast Natsu moved. I can only imagine how strong he is now, especially after that punch with Urza. I need to get stronger, and this is the best way to measure up. Will you join?" "No way. I don't want to break any rules." But look at how much money they're offering. You could pay a rent for months. Well, and they're offering a gold celestial spear key as well, said Happy. I'm in. The following day, Marahan hurried to Master Makarov down the guild steps. He had to know this right away. Master. Makarov said, what is it, Mir? Someone's taking one of the S-class missions. Before realizing the connotation, Makarov took a gulp of his ale and said, oh, okay. What? Who took it? I don't know. They both turned to Laxus and said, oh. Are you talking about the mission that a flying blue cat took? Happy? Why would he do such a thing? Wait, where's Gree and Lucy? You don't think? Do you think they took it? I don't know. Which one was it? The Galuna Island one. The Curse Island. Laxus, why did you not stop them? Oh, how am I supposed to know it was Happy? Who knows, maybe if we're lucky, they won't make it anyway. Better to weed out the weaklings. Mira glared at him like a devil. Oh, I haven't seen that look in a while, she devil Marahin. Makarov let out a sigh. It doesn't matter. Urza. Yes, master. Go retrieve them. And take Natsu with you. Hey, hold on a second. Natsu interrupted. He's not S-class, though Urza continued. Additionally, he punched you in the middle of Magnolia. This is our finest test since, let's face it, we haven't seen what you're capable of since you got back Natsu. Accepted or rejected? Fine. Go now. Yes, sir, both of them replied and walked away. Urza strolled over to Natsu, who she noticed was unsettlingly healthy, and they were on a pirate ship that Urza had hijacked, stolen, threatened to emasculate all the pirates for, or borrowed a short while later, bound quickly for Galuna Island. How did your motion sickness go? To get rid of it, I trained. In addition, it was becoming quite bothersome. I was not allowed to blow things up whenever I pleased. Honestly, 3 years, and you still can't stop destroying things. Urza shook her head and turned to leave. Natsu gazed off into space, saying, Urza, you'd be surprised. Yes, particularly as a killer, plotter, and assassin. Oh, you've been so quiet, old man. I didn't see the need to get involved, said Gostichaha. How am I supposed to search for the Biju now? That would have been helpful when I was trying to escape this situation. There are times when it is preferable to go with the flow of the river, instead of trying to force it. What in the world does that mean? Opportunity knocks, sighed that Gostichaha. Oh, why didn't you say that out loud? With a psychic face palm, Gostichaha said, I get a pink-haired idiot when there are 6 billion people in the world. Normally, I'd say Kami has a sense of humor, but I think he just wants to torture me for all the times I've cheated death. Urza wondered why Natsu's face seemed to change emotions without any apparent reason, but he simply smiled. Two figures were beginning to move back on Galuna Island as Grey, Lucy, and Happy began to piece together the specifics of the island's situation, the Cold Emperor, and the Demon Deliora's plot. A rather solitary individual was getting increasingly active in the woods. He left his house and ventured into his woods. To no one in particular, he remarked, it seems that things are starting to move. But he was well covered. He was dressed in a dark green long-sleeve shirt and long dark brown slacks. He covered that with a brown vest that had sporadic pockets. In addition, he wore a trench coat with a hood that covered his head, a mask over his face, and tinted goggles over his eyes. The most obvious was the stylized leaf that served as an emblem on the back of his garment. It seems that way, a voice inside of him said, because I can't feel my sister Matatabi anymore, it seems like someone has found us again. As bugs started to swarm the forest, the man reached out his hand and said, then I will have to make sure that they undiscover you. My little larva, just be careful. A monotone response came from the man. I will do my best, Chimay. A gigantic monster was swimming swiftly for its eyes as it approached Galuna Island from the opposite side of the island. In a tremendous water explosion, it swiftly exploded from the ocean, revealing a lone man who landed with grace. He was wearing a fur shawl over a blue trench coat that was buttoned up tight. In addition, he wore a blue Cossack hat and dark blue leggings. He covered his right eye with his shaggy, light blue hair. His coat has 4 stylized curled stripes on the back that look like mist. I don't know why he sent me here, but I intend to find out why he sent me here. I don't like being apart from my sister for long. He glanced at the purple beam falling on the temple of Galuna Island. Now, Galuna Island, what are you hiding?